Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here today to chat about the new Jessica Pratt album, Quiet Signs. Jessica is an LA-based folk singer. She's been at it a few years now. She has this very throwback, early 70s singer-songwriter aesthetic. Came off very nicely on her 2012 self-titled debut, which was this very quiet, very soft folk album, one that demanded 100% attention during its short runtime. However, your patience was absolutely rewarded here with these unbelievably harmonious, sweet tracks from Jessica that just came off so angelic and so beautiful and so pure. Now, Jessica has a very interesting voice. It's very quiet. Her voice is also kind of shaky, but in like the best way. Like it just makes her songs come off so much more emotional and powerful. And her 2015 follow-up, On Your Own Love Again, was a great follow-up album. A really haunting one, too. Her very unique vocals amongst these very stripped down and very straightforward folk tunes made for a really otherworldly album. It's just something that I just didn't hear at the time. Now, it's been a few years since we've heard from Jessica, and every last one of these singles that she's dropped from it have been an absolute knockout. So honestly, I've been really excited to chat about this, and spoiler alert, this album is fantastic. This album starts off with Opening Night. It's this very charming, sweet, and very quick instrumental that just really brings in a lot of the vibes that you're going to hear around this album. I mean, it's not exactly anything to write home about. There's nothing too crazy going on here, but it absolutely sets the tone for Jessica's very intimate performances. But then this album absolutely takes off quickly with As the World Turns. Right off the bat, this track gives me the chills. It's such a quiet, one-on-one folk song. You get the feeling a lot of times throughout this album, including this track, you get this feeling that you're having this one-on-one experience with Jessica. And most of the time, these tracks are also very straightforward. Here, it's just really Jessica and some very sweet guitars. She just instantly comes off so innocent, so gentle. I can't help but be completely captivated by this. There's also this incredible sense of mysticism throughout Jessica's music. It's really something. Like, in a world where folk and what it means to be a folk artist is changing every day as artists are just branching out into new genres, incorporating new things constantly, this is just so straightforward and obvious. It makes me so happy. This time around, a few tracks later, comes up with this very vintage pop sound, and I mean that in the best way. Listening to this track, I feel like I've discovered some absolutely heavenly forgotten classic. But beyond the obvious 70s singer-songwriter vibe, I just absolutely love Jessica's very fluttering performance here. Not to mention, this is easily one of the most personal tracks here. This is all just so damn obvious. Fare Thee Well, on the other hand, is a little bit more airy. Now, you do have to realize that the tracks that make up this album do incorporate a lot of the same elements. You're going to get very haunting performances from Jessica. You're going to get very stripped-down instrumentals. But on Fare Thee Well, we get these little details that really make it, like these dual vocals from Jessica. It's just something that we haven't heard from her so far. It's really interesting. And with the continued, very lo-fi production to this album, you continue to just feel like you're having a one-on-one checkup conversation with Jessica. And that lone flute that pops in at the end, it's so obvious. Like, why isn't anybody else doing this? And what's great about this album is Jessica does bring in some more instrumentals like flutes and pianos and some backing guitars, but I feel like none of it takes away from the very stripped down aesthetic of this album. Now, overall, this is a fantastic album. I do have a couple slight hiccups late in the album. One would be Crossing. But even at this album's worst, I still love a lot of the elements here. For one, Jessica on this one brings in a certain darkness, and there's almost like this very epic vibe to it that hasn't shown up on the rest of the album. Like, in a weird way, I'm almost getting some Marissa Nadler's Strangers vibes. But for me, on this track, Jessica's performance isn't her best. As a matter of fact, it's probably my least favorite here. She just kind of sounds like she's at a different point in her life than with any other song on this album. It's still pretty good. I'm not bored with it, but it's just not my favorite. I still think this is a solid track. I'm certainly not bored. At this point, I just kind of feel like this track is a little safe. But just when I start to think that this album's getting a little one-dimensional, we get Silent Song. This track is absolutely breathtaking. The vocal layering here is absolutely stunning. It's such a simple little detail, but it just adds so much to this track. Outside of that, this track is kind of business as usual. Jessica's performance is very straightforward. It's very beautiful. Once again, it's not my favorite track here, but still, I'm certainly not bored. But this album just has so many amazing moments, like Hear My Love. This is easily the most hypnotic track here. Here we get these lapping guitars, and we get Jessica's very hypnotizing and repeated chorus. It's a pretty mesmerizing tune. Here we get some piano notes in the background. I am glad that Jessica's slowly starting to incorporate a few more instrumentals here and there. And if you haven't guessed it by now, this album is a gem. And then we get Polly Blue, which is easily track of the album. It's just such a blissful, charming tune, filled with these absolutely breathtaking vocals from Jessica, and her best harmonies of the album by far. Like, when Jessica takes off for this chorus, I can't help but feel all warm and fuzzy. Jessica's sound just keeps getting bigger and bigger, even if it's with little details like a couple of extra harmonies or piano notes. And Jessica saves an absolute knockout for the finale with Airplane. This is a stunning, atmospheric folk track for the ages. There's just this overall sense of closure to this track, which is something that I haven't heard on a lot of albums this year. And her performance here is just so unbelievably angelic against this very shimmering instrumental. It's the sort of tear-jerking, absolutely massive finale that I didn't think that she had in her. So overall, this album is fantastic. I feel like Jessica's really come into her own on this album. The harmonies, the stripped-down sound, the early 70s singer-songwriter vibe, it's all so obvious, but it comes off so sincere. In a time where I feel like folk is kind of changing direction rapidly every day and conquering new things, which is great, it's just really refreshing to hear a true blue folk album like this. For me, I'm feeling a strong 8 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and let me know if there's any music you want me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.